When I was 14, I planned my wedding.
This one's wife. Will you just fuck off? Hello, I'm HG Tudor. This one's wife has reappeared and turned up at the Highbrow Hippie launch, which has provided me with numerous options to explain more about her narcissism in action. And here's another aspect of it. You can see the photograph that appears on your screen. It's a different angle where this one's wife, Katie Lee, and Serge Normand have been photographed. As I explained in an earlier video, you can see that Serge is adopting a natural position. He's looking at the camera. He is stood close enough for the purposes of a photograph, but not unnecessarily close in the way that this one's wife is. You can see Katie Lee. It's her night. She's in the centre. She's holding her bouquet of flowers, but she's got a look on her face which is a mixture of, ooh, have I just done a shart? And I wish this woman on my right would please fuck off. Somebody, please make her go away. Somebody uncoil her. Now, first of all, why is it that this one's wife's involved in this photograph? Because she's an investor? Yes, it might be the case. Maybe Katie Lee was having photographs taken with various people attending. But notice that once again, this one's wife can't just make an investment in this company and stay in the background. She has to turn up and she has to be seen. She has to have people know that she's made an investment, and she also needs to be seen draped around Katie Lee to show, look, we're BFFs. See? Me and her, really good friends. Up close and personal. And I've explained in an earlier video why does she cling on, why she behaves that way. But look at her here. She's still gripping Katie Lee in this particular photograph, but she's turned, looking at her, boring her gaze into her. Rictus grin plastered across her lips. Now, I've seen one person suggest that here the mask has slipped. It hasn't. But what you're seeing is this one's wife attempting to assert control over Katie Lee by essentially willing her to look at her. Look at me. Look at me. Fucking look at me, this one's wife is attempting. Serge isn't interested. He's looking at the cameras as you ordinarily would when you're having your photograph taken. Katie Lee is trying to look at the cameras, but she's of course now starting to feel somewhat unsettled by the creepy Klingon facehugger that is to her right, and her discomfort is writ large across her face. Notice that this one's wife doesn't interpret that discomfort. She's unable to do so effectively. Why? One, she has no emotional empathy, and two, her needs must come first. And her needs are, Katie, I need you to look at me. I need you to look at me. You must look at me. Her narcissism is demanding that that happens, so that this one's wife is then able to get the control that she needs over Katie Lee, and to draw fuel from her as a non-intimate secondary source in her fuel matrix by way of the appropriate response. This one's wife looks deranged. She looks deranged because of the close proximity towards Katie Lee, but also the fact that the other two people in that particular picture are looking towards the number of photographers that are there. But notice that this one's wife doesn't. She's focused on the person next to her and the necessity of control. That in that moment, her narcissism says, bugger the photographers, we've done that bit, even though she was looking in the wrong direction, as you'll have seen in an earlier video. But here, it's all about ensuring that she gets Katie Lee to respond to her. It's as if there's nobody else around, and it's just the two of them. This once again highlights the inappropriateness of this one's wife's behaviour, the way that she does things which don't sit with where she is. Why, for instance, we've seen her unleash the death stare, when we see the clenching jaw, the rapidly flapping eyelashes, the instances where she's prodded and grabbed and intervened, because her narcissism's facade management isn't always able to remain in a consistent fashion when up against the need for control. Those two things can often coexist quite easily. Facade maintained, control and fuel obtained. But where there is a clash between the two, control must always prevail. And that means that with certain narcissists who don't have as evolved facade management as part of their kit, if you will, you get these glimpses of failed facade management. Now, this isn't a demonstration of fury, so it's not the mask slipping in that respect, but rather the facade not causing her to behave in an appropriate fashion. Namely, she should be a reasonable distance from Katie Lee and looking towards the photographers, not acting as if they're a couple that are in love and that they're the only two people that are in the room. She's looking at her with an almost manic look on her face. And she's wanting that attention because attention equates to fuel and it also signals control. But all she does succeed in here is making Katie Lee look uncomfortable, not something that this one's wife will pick up on because she doesn't care, because she has no emotional empathy. And as I mentioned earlier, her need for control and her need for fuel surpasses the level of discomfort associated with Katie Lee. Instead, it has her as if she's whispering through clenched teeth, "Fucking look at me or I'll headbutt you." She looks deranged because of the position that she's in, the juxtaposition of that compared to the other two individuals who are having their photograph taken. And I can well imagine that by this point, Katie Lee's thinking, I wish I never accepted the bastard investment from this woman. She is hanging around, trying to steal my moment. She won't leave me alone. Will someone just peel her off me, please? It wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden she just shoved this one's wife to one side and shrieked to high heaven, "Will you please leave me alone?" But this one's wife doesn't, you see, because she has no boundary recognition and because people are too polite, because they put up with it. She gets away with it time and time again. Well, she gets away with it at the event. She doesn't get away with it with regard to the scrutiny that she's put under by your glorious narrator, who highlights these failings of her, which are driven once again by her narcissism. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.